It's inevitable. There are always a few bananas that get overripe in every bunch. But don't throw them away. They're a perfect excuse to make banana bread. So if you happen to have 3 bananas that look like this, they're perfect for banana bread. If you don't have time to make banana bread right now, pop these in your freezer and store them there until you do. But if you have a hankering for banana bread and your bananas aren't quite overripe yet, there's still something you can do. We can roast them. So take your bananas, pop them onto a sheet tray like this. I put a little bit of silicone down below because the bananas might leak onto that sheet tray. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. It should take about 20 minutes for those banana skins to turn entirely black. When they are, take them out of the oven. Look how gorgeous. Let them cool. While those are cooling, let's prepare the pan for our batter. So I've got a loaf pan here. It's ceramic. You can use metal as well if you wanted to. I'm going to take a little butter and I'm going to grease the inside of this, getting into all the corners and all of the sides and edges, as well as the bottom. Now I'm not going to stop there. I'm also going to sugar the inside of the loaf pan. This does 2 things. It helps improve the texture, and it also shows you if you've missed anywhere when you were greasing it. To do that, we're going to dump a good amount of sugar into the pan, and we're going to shake it around. Dump out any excess, and then set that aside. That's our pan ready to go. We're going to start mixing our batter together. And to do that, we're going to actually do very little. Because that's the trick with banana bread. You don't want to over mix it. So we're going to use our hands, not any kind of a mixer, and we're going to make this really easy. First things first, our bananas. If you've roasted them, they should be super easy to peel and almost fall out of the skin. Peel them over the bowl so that all the juices also fall into the bowl. Now we're going to use a strong fork to mash these up. If there are a few chunks left in there, no big deal. That's just a chunk of banana in your banana bread. Let's add the rest of our wet ingredients to this bowl. So, 2 eggs. Beat those lightly. Some oil. Beat that in. And our last ingredient to our wet ingredients is not actually wet, but we want our sugar to dissolve a little bit, so we're going to add sugar and beat that well. Now I'm just beating with a fork because I don't want to incorporate any air into this batter. Those are our wet ingredients. Let's do our dry ingredients. In this bowl I have some flour. I'm going to add some baking soda to that, some ground cinnamon, and a little bit of salt. I'm going to whisk this together, and that's going to break up any lumps so I don't have to sift the flour. Now here I'm going to do very little work again, and I'm going to not mix this too much. Instead, I'm going to put all of my dry ingredients into my wet ingredients, and I'm going to just stir it together until I no longer see any streaks of white. The reason I want to do this and not overmix it is because I want my banana bread to be more like cake than like bread, so I don't want to develop what we call the gluten or the protein in the flour. Also, if I incorporate too much air into this batter, that air is going to want to escape from the loaf when it's in the oven, and it'll form a tunnel or a hole through the middle of your loaf of bread. We don't want that either. That's called tunneling. We're going to avoid that by not overmixing. One more ingredient, completely optional, is of course walnuts or chocolate chips or dried fruit or anything else you want to add to your banana bread. You're going to add it now, but just fold it in gently. Now it's time to put that into our prepared loaf pan. So I'm going to pour that all in there, and we're going to fill this almost to the top, but not quite. You want to leave about ½ an inch from the top of the loaf pan so that the loaf has room to rise nicely. One final, again optional step, is to take turbinado sugar, that's a coarse brown sugar, and sprinkle this on the top of the loaf. That's going to give us some crunch and some beautiful browning. Finally, we're going to put this back into our 350-degree oven for about an hour. About an hour later, your house is sure to smell terrific. It's time to check to see if that banana bread is done. Let's take it out of the oven. And to test it, to see if it's finished, we're going to take a skewer and we're going to put that into the center of the banana bread. and pull it out and take a close look. If there's still gooey dough and batter on this stick, then you want to put it in for maybe another 10 minutes. If it's clear, however, it's time to let this banana bread cool. So let it cool in that loaf pan for about 10 minutes, then we're going to invert it onto a cooling rack. Grab yourself a hot mitt, just turn it out. It should pop right out because we buttered and sugared the loaf pan. Let it cool on a cooling rack, well, but not too long because warm banana bread is pretty tasty.